Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here. This is the Astrological Winds channel. I'm going to take a look at both the astrological weather report for the month of May and also this week, May 2nd to 8th. And once again, just really quick, as I'm noticing it does seem to be getting more people contacting me. The best way to get me for any reason, and especially for a reading, is through my email initially, and it's matthue823@gmail.com. That's matthue@gmail.com. But remember, the blog is on YouTube. It's also on all kinds of podcasts. It's also on Instagram. And just look up the Astrological Winds channel. And if you're on YouTube, and you have an account, you can become a follower. Turn on your notifications, you'll know it. The different podcasts, you can make it a favorite in your podcasts too, like on Spotify or something like that. And then, of course, on Instagram, I just post the link. So you can become a follower on Instagram. And the cool thing about the Instagram too is that I do sometimes 2 or 3, 4 times a week. I'll do a daily one too on certain days of the week that I think are kind of key or update some of the energy of the week. So you may be missing out on little blurbs there, which are not video or audio. They're just a little, couple sentences that you can read. So become a follower, it's the best way to do it. And remember, it is a free service, so pass it on to anyone that you think would be interested in it. That would be the best way to pay me back. And you're welcome to send a donation if you'd like. Matthew Lawton, L-A-U-T-E-N, at Matthew-Lawton on Venmo, or you can look me up on Zelle or PayPal too. But yeah, and then the best way to support me is I've been a professional astrologer for over 20 years. So if you or anyone needs a reading, just get in touch with me and we can talk about prices and things like that. And I'll go over some of that stuff real quick again at the end. But like I said, noticing that, people were asking me about trying to get in touch with me, I was like, okay, a lot of people not making to the end. So I'll mention that at the beginning. So May has a few things going on that are really exciting from the perspective that, I look at things. 3 things that are, pretty big changes, but a couple of them are really exciting. And it's front loaded towards the beginning of the month, most of the energy of May. In fact, 2 of, what I think of, the most exciting positive events happen this week. So not only are they part of the monthly, but part of this weekly's forecast. So really interesting. So let me do the May things first. So just in tomorrow, actually, this is a really interesting aspect. Jupiter is sextiling Pluto. And Jupiter is still in Pisces and strong, and Pluto is near the end of Capricorn, so they're in a really critical degree. And to top that off, if you remember last week, Pluto is the first planet that has gone retrograde since February 5th. So it is actually kind of stationary still. So when a planet's stationary, it's really got a lot more strength. And so this one is really cool. It really gives a lot of great opportunities to bring in transformative, positive, personal growth into your life on, whatever areas you're choosing to want to grow in. And it can really do that by transforming a lot of the values and belief systems that we have by, somehow not only expanding them, but deepening them at the same time, so that a lot of block things that may have been blocking us from growth and moving forward, are able to now be moved through. And so we can get ourselves therefore in a better position of self-empowerment and empower in the positions where we are out in the world. And we can invite in opportunities and changes that, with this type of aspect are very beneficial and one of the key things, and I've said this before with Pluto, and it's not going to be as hard to do with Jupiter and Pisces, because it's a very compassionate, tolerant Jupiter there, is to make sure that what you're doing is not only benefiting you, but it's benefiting other people, the people around you, the world in general, society. If you want greater success, that is really what appeases to Pluto. And I really, think that that's really one of the key things of astrology, is working with the energy. So this is a kind of energy where you can, the positive part of it is already there, so you can kind of up that positive part of it, is my point here. But it's a great time to rebuild, retransform, redo things, like reform things and build things up into a new level in your life. And so it's like, and it also, it's kind of almost like the benevolent leader energy too, just the way, it's put out. But it also, the other thing is, and you remember I talked about this a couple weeks ago during the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. Jupiter in Pisces is also on a very, spiritually awakening journey. So for me, the way I look at astrology, and I've said this many times before too, you can follow the energy of what's been going on prior to this and really see how it hands off to the energy that's going on now. So like 2 or 3 weeks ago, when we had the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, which was the big event of April, I talked about like how that could be like a lot to do with like spiritual awakening for a lot of people. So this is kind of taking that to the next level where, we got what we wanted on this ideational, abstract kind of level, and now it's possibly sprouted opportunities or, out there that we can respond to. And it's kind of like a revival in our life. It's like being reborn somehow in our life. There's some serious learning that's gone on, and the ability now to bring that out and teach. But it's like giving us a broader knowledge base of you, and the way you are in your life, and it's now a chance for you and your environment and your surroundings and your life to be reformed and grow and to another level. Now, equally interesting this week also, but also to me, one of the biggest events of the month of May, on Thursday this week, Saturn is sextiling Eris. So we've got another sextile. Now this one's even more interesting because it's going to be a 3-hitter. So it's going to be the energy of this one's going to be flowing until the end of January of 2023. That's about its last hit is January 16th of 2023. It also hits exact on June 23rd. But Saturn is really strong in Aquarius. And I've talked about that a lot. It's like, it's its rulership, it's its higher octave. And here comes Eris in Aries with this very individualistic desire for change. And right now, Saturn in Aquarius is open to change. It doesn't, it realizes that a lot of the systems that it rules, structures and systems, Saturn, need an upgrade, need something to happen to change. And so here, Eris can act as the individual who is bringing what, can be considered maybe like chaotic change. But remember, chaos theory, that's how things change. There's something introduced into the system that is not part of the system yet, and that makes it go into a little chaos, but also adjusts the whole system. So this is really a chance where individuals for these next, for the next, next 8-9 months, have a really powerful opportunity to create a lot of change within systems. And I really think it's interesting the balance just between those two things that normally, Eris and Saturn would not be in a lot of balance. But I think because Saturn's in Aquarius, it's open to changes to its systems and structures, and because the Eris is in Aries, that individual energy of Aries that can spring that forward. So very, very interesting. And at the same time, just interesting too, on Friday, Saturn is conjunct Vesta, the asteroid Vesta too, which really gives Saturn this really serious commitment even to its goals. Like, it really is very disciplined about getting behind its goals. So it can really use the energy of that Eris with the discipline of Saturn too, to really focus that and create some new opportunities to change things around you and in your life and in systems around you. Now, also in this month, and I'm not gonna go into a lot of detail with it now. We'll talk about it more next week when it actually happens. But on May 10th, Mercury will be going retrograde for the second time this year at 5 degrees Gemini. It will eventually backtrack to 27 degrees Taurus on June 4th and remain in Taurus and then turn around eventually and end up back in Gemini on June 30th. But the retrograde period will be May 10th through June 4th. So I'll talk about that in a lot more detail, but this is a Mercury retrograde month coming up. So like this week is the last week before the rest of the month is retrograde. So finish up whatever things you're like going forward with, because the next 3 weeks are going to be like, time to like, let it all settle in and go back and, go over things. So be aware of that. And then the other really big thing that I wanted to mention for May is, again, Jupiter. So Jupiter is changing signs. Remember, it's really close to the end of Pisces. So it's going to go into Aries. And that's a really big shift, really, really big shift. And not one that I'm as excited about because, like I said, Jupiter in Pisces is very comfortable, very tolerant, very open, very receptive. Now, when it goes into Aries, Jupiter's all about our values, our morals, things like that, things that, we can be preachy about, but there's a really big shift when it goes into Aries. So it's going to go into Aries on the 10th, the same day that Mercury goes retrograde. And it will get out to 8 degrees of Aries when it turns retrograde on July 29th. And then eventually on October 29th, which is a pretty famous day in economic history or date, it is going to go back into Pisces back in the fall, and then eventually turns direct again on November 21st. And we'll go back into Aries on December 21st on the solstice. So we're gonna get, what is that, about 2.5 months of it direct in Aries, and then another 3 months of it going backwards in Aries. So we're gonna get 5.5 months of Jupiter in Aries before it goes back into Pisces. Unfortunately, it did not spend a lot of time in Pisces. It was moving really quickly through Pisces. And so Jupiter is a social planet. It's one of the 2 social planets, and it's a lot about expansion and, like I said, philosophies, value systems, things like that. And so when it gets into Aries, people get very, very strong about what they value and their morals, and they can get a really kind of arrogant, defensive attitude about what they believe in. And so values become very individualistic, and people can become very aggressive even about defending those values. And so to me, that's a little bit for sure a concern on the social level, considering the way the world situation is on the war front, because mainly the situation in the Western world anyway, with Russia and Ukraine, but also there's many other smaller wars throughout the world. So I'm sure that all of them, you're going to see people really get strong about what they believe in, the leaders, the countries, whatever. So this can really really expand this more aggressive kind of energy on a social level. But people really want to, on an individual level, people really want to find out things for themselves and experience things for themselves, and really take on almost this an attitude of me versus the world, of them, when it comes to your belief system. So, there's a lot of confidence, and there's a lot of courage, there's a lot of brave acts, there's a lot of, and things, and there's a lot of going out into the world by individuals. So that can bring a lot of growth, on an individual level. But it really, like I said, it can really bring up an attitude that's more confrontational about values and morals and the things that we believe in. So that is, a concern. So, I really think a positive way for us to do this is to really wholeheartedly open up and pursue new ways of looking at things and adjusting your beliefs and value systems, and maybe getting out of ones that have been fed to you without maybe you even realizing it, and that are running a program or a model within you that you're being dictated by. So if this can help shake people out so that they can find out what they really believe in more, what they really value more, what their true morals are, that would be a good thing. But it really can feed an arrogance and entrenchment about who's right and who's wrong. And because it is a social planet, it really can feed a lot of aggressive energy, divisive energy, open enemy energy towards toward different groups and nations and societies. All right, and at the same time, Jupiter is going to be semi-squaring Uranus. So that's interesting too, because it brings in, once again, a desire for change, especially by individuals or radical type groups where they're willing to take the step that can be an upsetting type of behavior or action to make that change occur. So it's a very rebellious kind of attitude, but it's also exciting. It wants something new, like the Jupiter in Aries. It plays, those two things play together, and they want stimulation. We want new things in our life. We want things to break up. We can't really frustrated with the way things are, and we have a lot of interesting ideas that we want to get out there and push, so it can make life really interesting on that level. So like I said, most of the energy for May is really loaded in the front part of the month. There is a Jupiter series square to mid-month, and I really think that's just going to be just like the Neptune series square that we had this last weekend. It's going to be a continuation of the economy problems of inflation, energy and food prices going up, things like that, because Sirius is the things that we really need, and the things that really nurture us. So those things are gonna still be under stress, and the way our values with them are shifting, and they're going to have to. So there's two other things. I want to go back to this week now, May 2nd to 8th. And remember, I mentioned Jupiter sextile Pluto tomorrow, and Saturn sextile Eris, and Saturn conjuncting Vesta on Thursday, Friday. So those are actually the biggest events of the week too, but there's two other energies I'd like to mention, and one of them is today, Monday. There's another pretty big shift. Venus is also going into Aries. Remember, Venus and Jupiter are conjunct, so Venus is moving a little bit faster always or a lot faster really than Jupiter. Moves about a degree a day actually, and so Venus is going to go from a sign where it's really happy, exalted in Pisces, into a sign where it's not nearly as happy, Aries, where it's what we call traditionally in detriment. And the reason that is so is because Venus is mainly about our relationships. And when it gets into Aries, once again, it becomes more about us. What we want becomes more important than harmony and balance in relationships, which is what Venus normally would prefer. And Venus in Aries is not like, I don't want to make it sound like a negative thing, because it does make people very extroverted, vivacious, willing to go out and meet one another, but people are going for what they want. They're no longer really considering the other in a sensitive kind of way like Pisces did. This is more about what I want from you, and if you're not willing to get that from me, then I'm most likely going to move on. So there's a very individualistic energy to it that brings imbalances to relationships, and in particular, and it brings disharmony and imbalance to romantic relationships, because we can see that imbalances there. We can see where domination, subjugation imbalances are there, and yet we still have this desire to get what we really want out of it. So it can be really upsetting on that level, as far as the financial and artistic part of Venus, it can definitely give us a lot of motivation to get creative with our own energy and in our own very individualistic way. So that, I think, is really helpful with, the new moon energy that just came in, and some of the other stuff I was just talking about, the Jupiter-Pluto sextile, the Saturn-Eris sextile, where we can really put in a lot of our own energy into our own creativity and get some satisfaction out of that. Now, as far as monetary stuff with Venus and Aries, it's quick to lose or gain money. So and finances and stuff. So that's something to be aware of, that it's unstable on that level. So on the same day that she is going into Aries, she's also semi-square Uranus, and Mars is semi-square Pluto. And I think that all is feeding in, because once again, Venus with Uranus, semi-square Uranus, is no longer happy with the way relationships are in our lives, that the current relationship structures of many of our relationships are frustrating, need change, or if you're denying that they're changing, that it's obvious that they are. So it's kind of like this disruptive energy. So it really brings in the desire for new experiences with different people. It can bring in a lot of short-term connections only, odd attractions to new art. And once again, money can come and go very quickly with Venus Uranus. And then you add Mars semi-square Pluto, which is also about creative change and transformation on a positive level. It really is wanting to really bring in that energy, but it's also be careful with that too, because it can get us, especially with all this energy coming with Aries, into power struggles, open power struggles with others that can become very, literally can become violent, can become aggressive, violent, uncontrollable. And once again, this is not a good aspect for this week's world or political weather map. None of this stuff is going to be helpful in reaching compromises or negotiations or peaceful solutions to issues in the world. If anything, this is where, we can see a lot more destruction. And in our local, individual lives, we have to be careful of the things we're doing ourselves. That mistakes can trip us up. Our acts can hurt us and attract negative energy to us if we're overly aggressive. The transformation has to be like this deep creative one from inside and not being forced out on others so much. And then the other thing I want to mention is, later in the week, Wednesday and Thursday, 2 more aspects that can really, really fuel the individual to change and to really be confident in who we are and the gifts that we have. And that's Wednesday and Thursday. On Wednesday, Mars sextiles Uranus, and on Thursday, the Sun conjuncts Uranus. So, this is a time, especially right after this new moon, and the eclipse, with all that positive energy that was really tied into it. This is a time where we can really create our own unique opportunities to really get a chance to shine on who we are and to be confident about that. We don't need others to verify the validity of the gifts and the talents and the person we are. That we have a right to define our own humanity and our own individualism. So this helps us to break out of old patterns and systems and make new connections and bring in exciting new energy and take new acts. We actually are spurred to take these actions and just shine on our talents. And maybe, it may upset some people, when, people really move forward to claim who they really are. But those are just people who, they're stuck in an old model or system they're trying, to define or judge you through, and that's what this thing is asking us to do, for you to break out of that, for you to find out who you really are, and bring in new experiences, bring in new people, bring in, new energy, and bring in new knowledge, and show, what you can do, and then take some actions on it. So a really dynamic week, especially with those 2 long-term sextiles coming up, and then, the new moon eclipse season and all this Aries energy and Uranus energy can really be a dynamic, exciting week for individuals on our own level to bring in a lot of change and move forward and grow and remember to help those around us. Now, like I said, on the society level this week, there's some opportunities for some great stuff, but there's also knowing how things are in the world, there's also a lot of energy that can be very, very aggressive and digging in the heels energy. So you got to be a little bit of try to tone all that down and try to figure out ways that we can influence greater things too, like Jupiter and Pluto want us to, like Saturn and Eris want us to. And it's not just about us, it's about our ability to influence the way things are going on a greater scale too. All right, this is Matt, and this is the Astrological Winds channel. It's on there's at least one blog every week. Become a follower on YouTube and turn on your notifications, or look me up on a podcast. There's no reason to see a video. It's usually me just looking at the camera. And so look me up on a podcast and, become a follower on that. Leave some comments. That's another way you can get me. And then on Instagram, become a follower of the Astrological Winds channel on Instagram. And then there's some extra stuff that comes up on there during the week too. And you can always private friend me at Facebook too. It's Matthew Lawton, Lauten. And I also put the link there too, but you have to become a friend first. That is not an open public group. And my Facebook is only for astrology, incidentally, okay? And don't use it otherwise. And then remember, it's a free service, so please pass it on as the way to pay me back for it to someone that you know would be interested in it. And if you'd like to give a donation, my Venmo handle is at Matthew with 2 T's dash Lawton, Lauten, and you can look me up on Zelle or PayPal under that name too. I give readings. I've been doing readings for over 20 years. I'm a professional astrologer. I studied for 7 years. Formally, been doing readings a long time. So if you need your natal chart done, or you know someone else that does, please give me a reference on that. Predictive work, highly recommended every year, especially around your birthday. Get a 1-year forecast, just like this weather report I give for a week. It's for you, so that you know what's going on in your life and can work better with it. Highly recommend that, especially after you've had your natal chart done. Children's charts, relationship charts, fixed star readings for deeper soul purpose for people who are really looking into their lives on that level. Astrocartography and relocation services, elections if you need to know best timing for an event like a wedding or starting a business, something like that. All kinds of services. Classes available too, $25 a piece on Dropbox, or $20 if you're a student. Just get in touch with me about any of that stuff. And the best way is through email, initially anyway, matthuE823@gmail.com. One more time, matthuE823@gmail.com. And you can always leave a comment in one of the comment sections on any of the ways the blog gets out too. That's another way you can get me. All right. It's the merry month of May, and it's time in the Western Hemisphere anyway, where things are growing. So this fits in well with this energy. So this is a week where you should really go out there and either make or take opportunities to change and grow. I'll see you guys all next week.